Hey guys, this is MugenLord. I'm back again with another first impressions video. This time I'll be giving my impressions of the Star Ocean Divine Force demo, since a lot of you guys have been requesting it ever since I did the Valkyrie Elysium demo as well. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, definitely check that out. I appreciate the feedback on that video, and it's definitely climbing in views. So before we dive into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also hit that bell for notifications for more uploads coming to this channel. So let us dive right into it. Now, as far as these demos are concerned, I already had in my head that I wanted to buy these games no matter what. But I'm glad I did try the Valkyrie Elysium demo, so now I know it won't be a day one purchase, but it'll definitely be a holiday release purchase. But for Star Ocean Divine Force, nah, my mind is still set on this. I really enjoyed what I played in the demo, and just to give you guys a head up, I was playing on the Xbox Series X, so this is the perspective that I'm coming from. Rather than what I did with the Valkyrie Elysium, which was a PS5 experience for me. So as far as the demo is concerned, I really enjoy it. And it also confirmed for me as well is that they're going back to its traditional roots when it comes to selecting the protagonists in the game. You have two main protagonists. You always have a male and female protagonist in the Star Ocean games, but the later games you couldn't select. It's normally just one streamlined storyline for the more recent Star Oceans, but they went back to this where you get different perspectives depending on what character that you pick, which means it's going to have a lot of replayability in this. So you can choose from either Raymond or Latricia. Now in the demo you can't play as her. In the demo, of course, you can play as Raymond, and when the game starts, you pretty much start on with your crew of, I guess you say, space travelers that travel from planet to planet and transport whatever items that they need to transport. So you're on the ship with Raymond and his crew, Chloe, and also Elena herself. Now Elena is pretty much the one that's I would say that's, I guess you say, the narrator, because it shows her name and she's talking and everything. But something strange happens. Is a Federation ship begins to attack them. Now on the Federation ship there's a character that goes by the name or last name Kenny. And now if you don't know anything about any of the Star Oceans, Kenny is normally one of the highlight characters in every Star Ocean game, especially the very first Star Ocean. So there is a Kenny in this one as well. Now I just want to know if it's going to have any connections or if there's going to be any familiar names that may pop up from the previous Star Ocean games, but we have to wait and see. Well, they end up being attacked, and what happens is Elena essentially tell Raymond that, hey, there's nothing you can do, and she throws him onto the space pod, and then they end up crash landing. Now she gets Chloe gets hit with a electric jamming system where he can no longer communicate with her, so he ends up being separated. So once he lands on the planet, that's when Princess Latricia and her, I guess you could say, her right-hand butler or servant that you want to call, or counselor, named Albert, comes in and pretty much assists Raymond when he gets attacked by one of the monsters. And this is where we get into the combat system. Now on Twitter there was arguments about the combat systems. There's people who was debating whether or not if the combat system is really for them, because in this game the combat works essentially where you have the AP gauge. Now the AP gauge is where you're allowed to perform a certain amount of attacks. Now each attack has an assigned AP points that's added to it. So depending on which move you use, it determines on how much AP that it uses up, which we'll get farther into this later on in the video. But essentially after you defeat the monster, pretty much Raymond introduces himself, and like most Star Ocean games, the Federation has this code to where, since they come from an advanced technological society, whenever they crash land on an underperformed or untechnological civilization, they're not allowed to pretty much tell them where they come from or share any of that technology, because it could affect the balance of the universe, or it can enhance and evolve that society or those people on that planet way before they're supposed to evolve. So you're not allowed to interfere with that. Well, in this game, it seemed like for the past couple of games, the main character has been pretty much messing that up, pretty much getting involved with this civilians and the people of that planet and introducing them to the technology. Well, for some reason, this one is much different because it seemed like that the princess and them are pretty much, or kind of like familiar, because they know what a spaceship is, so they know a little bit of what's going on, but they still don't know what a communicator is. And I like the gestures, and that's why we want to point out too. Raymond and the cast in this game, from what we got here in this demo, my biggest issues with the recent Star Ocean games is how doll-like and emotionless the characters are. But I can safely say, despite some of the emotionless things that happens with their face in this game, is definitely a big upgrade, because the characters are has a very well good body gestures and how they express themselves with their bodies when they're talking. And I kind of like Raymond so far. He's much more energetic. He cracked jokes, and he seems more like a real person compared to the previous main protagonist in the last Star Ocean games. A lot of them feel more robotic in the last Star Ocean games. This one, he has more life to him, and so does Latricia and Albert. They have more life. They don't feel stiff or anything of that sort. So I'm already starting to like this cast already, just by the simple interactions they're having so far. It's definitely a big upgrade compared to the previous Star Ocean games. So kudos to that. I give them props for that. I just wish they still do something with the facial expressions, but everything else about the characters, I'm liking them so far. I think this may be a party that I may like in this RPG. We just have to wait and see full version of the game definitely comes out. So pretty much Raymond older brother get in contact with him, and he's telling them to stay put until he shows up to be able to save them. So now what's going on, Raymond has to find Chloe, and he's hoping that Elena made it safely. So Princess Latricia and Albert decided to say, hey, we'll tag along with you to help you find your friends, since you don't know anything about this planet. And plus, they're also curious about how advanced this technology is, and if whether or not Raymond and them come in peace and don't want to destroy or come and invade their planet. So they both sides have some invested interest in one another. So it works out for them. So this is where the game starts to open up, give you a few tutorials on what to do and how to explore. And also, I chose in my settings, I picked performance over visuals, and despite me picking the frame rate, which I prefer, it still looks pretty good for what it is. Now, I also want to let you guys know, even though it's for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, I'm telling you right now, this game was designed for last gen consoles, for the PS4 and the Xbox One, and it's just been ported over to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. So this is definitely not a next gen or current gen JRPG compared to what we're going to see with Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Rebirth. So this is definitely a last gen RPG that's just being ported over to the next gen consoles. So yes, there is, with the frame rate selection that I picked, there is some pop-ins that come in every once in a while, and sometimes I get a smooth 60 frames, and then sometimes it dips depending on where I'm at as far as the location is concerned. But this is where the game begins to open up. The game is linear because it's the opening sequence for the game, so it's teaching you mechanics and stuff like that. So they won't let you go off the beaten path too much, but from the explorations, it's definitely a big difference compared to Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness, which it gives you this illusion that everything is big and massive, and it's actually not, and everything feels more confined, similar to how Tales of Arise felt to me. But this time, the locations in this game definitely feel a bit more organic, feel more natural, feels more open. And I love the fact is that the combat now, which we're getting into right now, since you guys definitely want to know about that, the combat is so much more seamless. You see the enemies that appear on the field, and it doesn't take you to a different transition to another location to fight. Everything happens in the field that you're located, and there's no barrier that confines you into a certain space, like or a radius or anything. The whole field is to your advantage unless you go too far out and then the battle ends. But other than that, let's talk about the battle system, because I think the battle system to me is the biggest highlight in this Star Ocean Divine Force demo. I gotta say, I really enjoyed the combat, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there was people on Twitter saying that they felt limited, that they didn't like the fact is that you couldn't really, that you're limited to how many attacks that you can use. And this is from people that's so used to playing JRPGs or action RPGs, to where they just button mash. This game is not a button masher, because everything is relegated to your AP. Every skill has AP points tied to it. so it limits how much you can use. Now this is where the strategy come in. You can't button mash. Button mashing will get you killed, because you have to think about your strategy of how you approach the enemies, and you have to realize and relegate what attacks that you can essentially use in battle, and how much AP that it uses. Now, as far as the combat's concerned, it utilizes the X, Y, and B. So you do have 3 buttons that you can use. Now, what got me super excited is when you open up the menu system, this will let you know that this game is going to be crazy when it comes to character or player custom combos and freedom of expression when it comes to the combo, because each button has its own, I would say, like flow chart to it, where you assign your special skills on the button. So each button has 3 different attack trees to itself. So that means as you start unlocking different attacks, you can actually mix and match the buttons and perform your combos, and it leads into whatever attacks that you assign within the sequence that you have on those buttons. So I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a lot of customization and freedom when it comes to the attacks, because I knew from the start. And I like the fact is that you also have a button sequence for when you hold the button down. So I already have in my head for my mages and for my spellcasters, I put some of my spells where I hold the button down to perform certain attacks. And I already have in my head for Raymond that he not only uses a sword, he also has some melee combat where he uses his fists and he uses his feet to be able to kick. So I'm already having in my head that I'm going to post most of my melee attacks on the B button, while all my sword attacks are on the X and Y. So I already have those things mixed up in my head, how I'm going to do it. I'm theory crafting. So yes, there's definitely freedom of expression. Now, as far as the AP meter is concerned, you can actually increase the AP meter gauge to up to 15 ticks. In order to do that, positioning plays an important role. This tutorial in the game definitely put emphasis on how you position your character, because it's all about getting the blind spot on your enemy where they don't see you. Because what happens is when you blind spot your enemy, it also increases your AP gauge, which means it allows you to perform longer combo strings. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, if you get hit with a critical, or if you die in combat, you pretty much lose, and it resets your AP. And even if you switch the characters out that you have on reserve and put them in, you still retain the AP that you have earned doing the blind sides. So in order to blindside, you have to pay attention to the direction and the meter and the gauge that's surrounded by the enemy to let you know where their line of sight is actually at. So once you figure that out, you can roll, dodge, get behind the enemy, blindside them. When you blindside them, it also gives you extra rewards as far as experience points, item drops, and everything like that, and also extra AP meter, which I definitely appreciate that. So when you go into combat, you really have to think of how you assign your special abilities, and how also you position yourself in order to maximize the amount of damage that you can get and the amount of reward that you get from each combat system. So you always have to keep that in mind. Another good thing too, and it's also relevant in other Star Ocean games, you're allowed to switch your characters, your party members, while in combat, which is also a good thing, because you can set up different attacks and then switch to the next character, and you can pretty much capitalize on what the previous character that you have selected to perform whatever attacks and combos that you have set up. So yes, it definitely encourages you to do a lot of switching back and forth depending on the situation. And then you have certain enemies that also have multiple attack spots, multiple parts that you can hit, limbs that you can attack, which also is going to play a big role in the game that I can definitely see. And also that adds onto the extra damage to the enemy's main health when you attack those specific points and parts, which is also really, really dope. Then you also have this mechanic called Duma. Duma allows you to pretty much essentially use to not only traverse, which we'll talk about in a second, but in combat you can use that to whip around the enemies to actually clear out the area in large groups of monsters as well. And it's another way for you to get out of their eyesight and then go in for the attack to get the blind side, which also, like I said, increases your reward and also increases your AP meter. So there's a lot you can do with that. So besides the battle, you also have skill trees. Skill trees is where you will pretty much get most of your worth out of. You gain SP after every battle. You use the SP point, which is your skill points, in order to unlock more moves, which you can use. And what I like about it too is when you look at the move, you can actually look at the preview of it and what the move look like. So you can already theory craft on how you want to equip and what skills to equip in order to maximize your attack potential and your attack sequences that you have aligned into your chain combos that you have equipped on your character. So that's also a good thing that you can look into. So there's going to be a lot to unlock here as far as the skill tree for each and every last party member. So yes, there is some in-depth mechanics here that I'm really excited to actually sink my teeth into. So I'm going to definitely have a ball with that. Now also, in the demo, I want to talk about traversing. In this Star Ocean game, you're actually allowed to jump in this game, which means you can jump on ledges, platforms, and everything like that. And I think this is the first Star Ocean that permits you to do that. So I'm kind of curious to see what will they do as far as puzzles are concerned and how to reach particular locations. Now you can use the Duma in order to access specific locations that you can't reach, which there's also Duma crystals that you can increase skills and use those points and those crystals to also upgrade your Duma to put passive skills on your characters as well, for you to be able to navigate the terrain and everything on the map. And as far as the map is concerned, yes, the locations are very vast, very big, and there's a lot of locations that you can actually traverse and actually explore. And the Duma also makes it possible to find every last goodies and everything and within the nook and crannies of each map. So it definitely encourages you to explore the map even more. And you know me, I love level grinding, and since the combat is fun and it's definitely going to get quite addictive as you start to gain more skills, I'm definitely going to spend a lot of time level grinding. And that's where I want to talk about that Star Ocean can definitely get difficult if you don't watch out and if you're careless during battle, because Star Ocean is known to have this balancing issue to where the game gets extremely hard out of nowhere. And the thing is, I've been leveling up like crazy, and yet these enemies at times are very easy, then out of nowhere become super hard. Not super hard, but they take much more damage, and you really have to really be careful and take with cautions on how you approach these enemies. And also, you can creep up on the enemies and blindside them before the battle starts, so you can also keep that in mind when approaching battles. Also in the demo, you'll travel to about 2 towns. The first town you go into is the town where the princess pretty much advised you to go to, and there's a quest there. So there's some questings, there's some NPCs that you can talk to in order to unlock quests and get experience points or whatever items or rewards that you can get. Also, when you go into the end, when you go in, you can use that to be able to have items cooked and everything, so you can get extra buffs before going out into battle, out into the field. And also, the demo ends at the second town, which is the mining town that you go into, where you are introduced to another character that eventually will join your party. And pretty much, essentially, the demo pretty much ends there. But overall, man, like, I enjoyed every last bit of it. I enjoyed the combat, and I knew that's where the heart and the meat of where the game is going to be. The story definitely has me intrigued, because I want to know when we're going to run into Elena. I want to know what happens once his brother Antonio shows up. Will they turn against the civilians once they get there? And I want to know why the Kennys are after Raymond and his crew. So something is definitely going on, and I definitely want to find out. And I definitely want to know what's the point of the Duma. Elena has sent that to him, so there's something special about the Duma, because Raymond never seen one before, and we already know Latricia and Albert never heard or seen one before. So I definitely want to know what's that all about. So the story does have piqued my interest, and the character's personality is much more lively compared to the wooden personalities of the previous protagonists and parties in the last game. So I'm definitely looking forward to see where that go. But that's essentially my thoughts on the demo of Star Ocean Divine Force. I really enjoy it. It's definitely a day one purchase for me. I already have the game pre-ordered for the Xbox Series X. I just loved it. I just love playing this game on the Xbox Series X. because I love the Xbox controller. I don't know what it is about the DualSense. I prefer the DualShock 4 over the DualSense. So playing a lot of these action RPGs on the PS5 in general, I just don't like the controller and how it feels, but it just feels just right on the Xbox Series X. So I'm picking it up from there For those of you who have the Xbox Series X and want some JRPGs and want that experience, I suggest that you try out the demo. And I think this is going to be something. I think this is going to be an experience that you may enjoy. I think this is going to do pretty good. It seems like that the team at Tri-Ace is doing a bit better than what they had done with the last entry that they had with the Star Ocean series. I think this will be something that will turn the series around. I'm not saying that this is a perfect game, because it's far from perfect from what I played so far, but I think they're going in the right direction with this game, and hopefully this game does do well, so we can see major improvements and maybe a true next generation Star Ocean game in the near future. But that pretty much wraps this video up. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment sections below what do you think about Star Ocean Divine Force in general, and if you have played a demo, let me know what you think about the gameplay and the characters and the story itself. And also, don't forget to hit that like button. If you like this video, definitely hit the like button. If you don't comment, that's fine, but at least hit like or dislike, because it shows YouTube that you guys are engaged in my content, and it further sends out those recommendations to other people on the YouTube platform to find my channel, because it really helps. And also, don't forget to hit that bell to be notified once again, to stay informed and update for whatever new RPG releases are coming in the near future. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.